My name is Shalini Saraswathi. So back 12, I think, long ago when we had slam books, I don't know how many of this generation here knows that, but it was like a actual handwritten, those used to exist. We would write these things about where our life is and what we wanted to become in our lives. And I remember all through my 10th, in my slam book writing, being a very successful career woman. And in 2012, that was exactly where I was. I was being the very successful career person. We'd bought a house. I was happily married. Am happily married. We'd gone on a trip to Angkor Wat. We were pregnant. So there was a lot of little tick boxes that I was checking, which defined success for me. And when I did come down with the fever, we put it down to pregnancy. And I remember having a really tough time at work, going back to the doctor, and they initially thought it might be dengue or malaria because my platelet had really dropped. And then the doctor said that I probably need to get admitted in to the hospital for better care. And that is my last memory, because over the next 6 days, I had a multi-organ failure, my heart stopped twice, my lung was filled with water, and I was given like a 3% chance of survival. I think the doctors actually honestly didn't think I was going to make it, and they did tell my family that, you should come over and see whoever needs to see her before she kicks the bucket. I didn't kick the bucket. My theory is that I went upstairs, and I guess they didn't have the bandwidth to deal with me, and they kind of sent me back downstairs. When I did wake up, all my limb extremities had turned a dark blue-black, basically thrombosis of all my blood capillaries. On my trip to Cambodia, I happened to contract a very rare bacteria. It's called rickettsia with moths, and that's what caused it. And this is where I do my standard disclaimer, because I feel I single-handedly seem to destroy Cambodia's tourism. I just happened to be unlucky to get the virus. I think, all of y'all can still go back and, have a great time in Cambodia. I remember the doctor at the hospital, a psychiatrist at the hospital, tell me that there's a very likely chance that I might have to lose all my limbs. But I almost remember being very cocky with the doctor to say that, I don't think so, or like, it's gonna be fine. And it came from an absolute place of denial, because you don't have fever and go back to a hospital and lose all your limbs, right? And even if that did happen, it doesn't happen to you. It happens to the person that you read about in the newspapers. So we went back home because we thought, there was going to be a miracle out there. There's going to be something that was going to change and, fix me. I think growing up on a great dose of Bollywood movies, we all have that moment, right, where we think that somebody is going to be praying at the temple and then that the flower drops from the god, and cut to another scene where I miraculously wake up from my chair. I think we were gunning for that. But things really didn't go in my favor. I think the gangrene started on, and that was a really difficult one for me to deal with, because I didn't know how do you deal with the smell of your own flesh rotting. I met a doctor in Kerala, into Ayurveda, back to my Kerala roots. And for a while, things began to look better. I went back to work. Long before COVID, I was working from home. And the best way to describe my limbs at this point in time is dried wood. And what I didn't realize is that when you constantly knock on dried wood, is that it cracks. So I managed to fracture my first hand in March of 2013. And I had to lose this one. And I think that was the time we even entertained the word disability in our dictionary and our vocabulary. The rest of this hand fell off about 6 months later in August of 2013. And with that, we knew that there was no real point in having to wait for it, because we were always gunning to save a hand. Even today, I would settle for one hand. With that, we decided that we had to go ahead and amputate both the legs, and I went back to the hospital. I painted the day of my surgery, a day prior to my surgery, I painted my nails a bright purple, because I decided if my legs were going to go out, they were going to go out in style. And we had both my legs amputated. I came back, had prosthetics and these babies that you can see that I wear. We tried that, and we figured that we couldn't do some of the most basic things in life. I couldn't walk. I couldn't sit off on a chair and get off a chair. I couldn't do some of the very basic things that I took for granted all my life. And I think, to be honest, it was also vanity, because I put on a lot of weight and I didn't like the way I looked. I met my coach, Coach Ayappa, and I said that, listen, I want to lose weight. I want to do some of the most basic things in life. And he said, sure, I've never worked with anybody like you, but come on. He usually only works with elite athletes. So that was how I ended up going to Kantirava Stadium in Bangalore, and we just started to train. And I think the intention initially was just to be able to walk without waddling like a duck, to be able to sit in a chair and get off a chair or climb up the stairs like I did. Nothing really major. And we did that for about a year and a half, I think. And then coach came up with the idea that I should run the TCS and do the first 5 kilometers. I thought the man had lost his marbles because, I didn't run when I was able-bodied. Why would I do that having lost all my limbs? And I conveniently went away on a holiday during that time. And when I came back, he said, wow, we're going to run 10 kilometers the next year. And like with everything else, men tell you a lot of things that you don't necessarily believe in, but you kind of play along. So I did for a bit. And I was hoping that there was going to be a time where he will have to agree that he was wrong. For a change, he wasn't. And I remember him calling me to Kantirava Stadium one Saturday evening and said, we're going to try doing the 10 kilometers today, which is 25 laps around the stadium. I remember getting to like the 16th round and I'm saying, listen, I don't think I can do this, but the man won't give up. And we pushed, we crawled, we cursed him, but we got through the 10 kilometers. I hated every moment of it because it was painful, it was excruciatingly painful, but I absolutely loved what I felt like at the end of it because I felt like I could deal with anything else in my life. And that's how I ran my first TCS in Bangalore in 2015. I did it in an abysmal 2 hours. And then I thought that, I can do this better, and that's how I ran the next year, and I did it in 1 hour and 35. And then the running bug stuck because, I felt like, there was something absolutely powerful about taking power back from fate because you're in a state where you feel that you can't do anything with your body, and then to be able to do that, you kind of gain agency back and you kind of feel you can deal with anything in your life. And then we decided to get into professional athletics because we felt we could do that. I've been a consistent national level winner. And my happiest, the highest moment for me has been to go to Asian Games last year and holding the record for the fastest woman on blades in Asia. Thank you. I think being a blade runner has helped me. It's made me become okay with my body and become okay with what has happened. I think running has given me the wings that I probably thought I had lost. But more than anything else, I think it's given me multiple moments to point my non-existent finger into the sky and tell the person up there that he chose to mess with the wrong woman. I think running's also helped me anchor disability exactly where it belongs, which is out in the open. With that having said, I'm going to very quickly segue into what have been some of the biggest learnings that I've had in my life. Obviously, the first question that's running through your head is how do you go through something as large as this and almost emerge unscathed? There is no, I don't think there is a shortcut to that. I wish there was one because I could have sold it by the bottle and become a multimillionaire. But it's just that it's hard, it's tears, it's anger. For a large part of your initial years where you're upset about why it happened to you, right? Because you don't deserve it, you don't, you're not a bad person. And for very long, you're absolutely angry with anybody that has 2 hands and 2 feet because, you don't have it. But along the line, you also realize that you can choose to be angry and upset and disappointed about what has happened, but that doesn't change my situation in any form or fashion. I could still just be a terrible person and feel awful about it, and the world still continues to go on. But the answer to the question really came when I watched Kung Fu Panda 2. Kung Fu Panda 2, yeah? Yeah? All right. So Kung Fu Panda 2, last part of the movie, if you know, Po's our hero, and Shen's the evil peacock, right? And there's a last part in the movie where Po's on this little wooden driftwood piece, and he's doing this, and he finds his inner peace, and he destroys Shen's evil ship. And then Shen says, I scarred you, and how did you find inner peace? And Po, being Po, just shrugs his shoulders and says, it doesn't matter. What matters is what you choose to become now. And that is a choice every one of us have, to choose the life that we want to have. The second important lesson for me is that it's important for you to have acceptance if you want to move forward. For very long, like I said, I couldn't accept my disability. I didn't like my body. I didn't like what has happened to me. And there were a million tears and there was anger and all of that for me. The key fundamental truth was that no matter how I felt about my situation does not change at all. But I learned the word called endurance at that point in time, right? And I'm going to quote Forest of Enchantment here by Chitra Banerjee, which is Sita's version of Ramayana. And in it, there's a last part in the book where Sita has been banished from the kingdom by Ram. She figures she's pregnant with her children, and there's a little part I'm going to read for you. All the way back, I pondered the word endure, what it meant. It didn't mean giving in. It didn't mean being weak or accepting injustice. It meant taking the challenges thrown at us and dealing with them intelligently as we knew until we grow stronger than them. That's what I'd work on. And I completely resonate with that. Strength, I figured, does not mean that you're not tired. It does not mean that you're not in pain. It does not mean that you're not exhausted. Strength is just the will to continue to move forward. And I think that's something all of us probably inherently have. Of course, the word also that I think that's constantly given to me is resilience, right? And resilience is nothing but your ability to bounce back from trauma or illness or anything that's not necessarily great in your life. And it got me wondering that, is resilience something that all of us are born with? Now, you don't know if you're resilient unless you have a bad situation, right? You don't really know you are resilient or not. But there was an interesting research done in 1989 by Emma Werner in Switzerland, in the Hawaiis, and they did it with about 700 all children, and it was a 32-year-old longitudinal research. And what they did was, out of that entire group, they had about 2/3 of those children that came from stable families. What we would say they were not at risk, so basically they had a larger chance of being successful at life. And there was a 1/3 of the population that was at risk. And when I say at risk, they came from unstable families, they came from poor, maybe, single-parent families, etc. What they did expect was that the 1/3 of the children that were at risk would not necessarily be successful at life. What they did find was that 1/3 of that population did become competent, caring adults. And when they did a little more bit of digging in, what they found was that some of them were just sheer luck, right? They had like either a very caring parent or they had great teachers, so they pushed them through to it. But the largest part of it was just psychological. These were children that were not willing to let fate orchestrate what happened to them. They had a better locus of, or they had better social orientation. They were not willing to necessarily give up. And I think that, again, is a great quality for all of us to think about, to say resilience is just me telling ourselves that no matter what, we're going to be successful in life. How do you go from being a non-sporting person to an athlete? I don't have a single athletic bone in my body, and neither does my family, right? We're artists, we're singers, we're musicians, we're all of that. But no sports. I think the only time I did sports was I was part of the volleyball team in school, and that was also because I went into a girls-only convent education, and that was the only way you could meet boys. The other thing was I was part of Blue House, and again, that was also, you were not running because you were great, but because you were the best of the worst. So, that's kind of my only foray into sports. But I think for me, it was just the will to want to do this and hard work, right? It took me 10 years to get to the Asian Games, right? It's 10 years of waking up every single day at 5 o'clock in the morning. It's 10 years of working out 6 days a week, of strength training thrice a week and running the rest of it. It is 10 years of giving up biryani. It's 10 years of not drinking alcohol and making every decision in your life on whether that is going to affect your sport or not, right? So I wouldn't party, I wouldn't go out with my friends, because if I knew I can't turn up for practice the next day, I wouldn't do it. So it is that. So I think one of the biggest factors that determines success is not necessarily even, a high IQ or EQ or any of that. it's just grit, right? And grit is passion, and it's perseverance for very long time, for long-term goals, and having the stamina to stick through it. It is to make sure that you're not just sticking it through for a week or months, but it's for years to make sure that you can achieve your end goals. And it's also like, I think, Harry Potter to a large extent. If you've read Harry Potter as well, there's a part in it which, our hero, Harry Potter, is part of the Gryffindor school. And he should have been in Slytherin, and he's having a conversation with Dumbledore where he says that, why do you think I went to Gryffindor and not Slytherin? And it says it's actually because I wanted the Sorting Hat to put me in Gryffindor. And sometimes it's our choices far more than our abilities that decides what happens with our lives. Are we okay for time? Yes, okay. What do I miss the most today, post-disability, and you'd think it's going to be a lot of things. I miss driving. I do drive kind of illegally, and I don't know if I should be saying that on camera, but it is what it is. But the whole point is the system doesn't allow me to drive. It doesn't make it easier for me to lead the life that I want to, right? So I really miss that. I miss not being able to just take off by myself, do a solo trip, go to a music concert, or do any one of those things by myself. I've learned that most places are designed more often than not by default to exclude people like me. I do step out a lot, I'll be honest with that, and I only step out because of the sheer determination of my friends. I miss most of the little things, actually, more than anything else. I miss walking on grass. I miss holding hands. I miss the feeling when the sea kind of takes the sand from under your feet. And those are the small things. I miss being able to kill mosquitoes. There's something just so rewarding about that, and you don't really realize that. And then the most thing that you cannot ever, ever, ever replace for you to do is to get someone to scratch. They itch you because they never get the spot right. They never get the intensity right. And I really wish as best hospitals, y'all can figure something out for that. Some journeys, I think, are extremely uncomfortable, but they're required for your own personal growth, I think. Growing up, I never said that I ever wanted to be a person with a disability. But today, if I stand in front of you, confident, willing to flash these in front of you, it's been a journey to get to this point. And I've learned that, sometimes a lot of the times we don't want to do a lot of things because we feel, we're going to be disappointed, or we're going to be unsuccessful at it, or it's going to be very stressful, or I'm not going to like how I'm going to feel about it. I feel like those are dead people goals. The only time that you're not going to be stressed or unhappy or disappointed is if you're dead. So, for everything else in your life, if you have to be, the tough emotions are part of our life in itself, and you cannot have a meaningful career or raise a family or leave the world a better place without any kind of stress and discomfort. So I kind of think you should accept it. My last point that I'm going to leave you with is about the impermanence of life. I know we always think we're going to do something when we're in our 40s, in our 50s. We're going to take off with our girlfriends and do that Goa trip. And, I just feel that if you want to do something, do now, because you're not really sure if you're going to be alive tomorrow. So, walk on grass, hold hands, tell a lot of I love yous, hug people, call that friend that you've been meaning to for very long, because you're really not sure if you're going to be alive tomorrow. They say like some of the most important things are not necessarily, what we think it is. We're always running behind something. The most important things in your lives are mostly memories and people and places and laughter. So I do hope you can invest in them. Maya Angelou says it's not your buildings or your cars. Your legacy is every life you've been able to touch. So every single day, come up with love, because you're building your legacy every single day. So I do hope for everyone in this room that you can build a legacy that you're very proud of yourself. Thank you very much.